What's up, YouTube, and welcome to my pickups video for the month of February 2024. I got to do a little bit of travel this month and visited Los Angeles, California last weekend, a place that I've been to many times in my life, but it was really my first trip back since COVID. A lot has changed in the game store market out there. I would say one thing I really like about Los Angeles is there is a wide variety of game stores out that way, including many import-centric game stores, and including also some chains that are known in Japan, such as Book Off. So I got the chance to visit one of the Book Off locations out there that I'd been to before, which has a lot of import games. I visited a few of the local game stores, and then I also got to visit Game Dude, which is an LA institution that has been in North Hollywood since I believe 1988 or 1989, one of the first used video game stores in the country even. I knew Game Dude from back in reading old EGM magazines and stuff back in the 90s because they always used to advertise in them with mail order. And so I know they've kind of gotten away from that, but their game store is fantastic in that it's this huge warehouse full of games. Inventory's down a little bit since COVID, but definitely a legendary institution in that market. Other than that, I can just tell you that LA traffic is terrible and makes getting around to all their cool sites kind of a chore, and also you have to plan very well. So while I hit quite a few things, many other stores that I never got to see when I was out there just due to the geography and getting around with the logistics and all that. But fun trip, and brought some stuff back, very heavily Japanese import-centric, that I'll show you in the video here. So the first thing I got was actually from that Game Dude stop. This is a game that I've been wanting for Super Famicom for many, many years. I've just kind of hesitated in ordering it online because the reviews of this game are just not all that great, and to me it should be great. But this is Jockey Crush, or Jackie Crush, however you pronounce it, and it is part of the Alien Crush and Devil's Crush pinball trilogy of video pinball games by Naxxit Soft. I absolutely love Alien Crush and Devil's Crush. Those are two games for the TurboGrafx 16 that I can just kind of zone out and play for hours. There also is Dragon's Revenge on the Sega Genesis, which is the same thing as Devil's Crush, but for that system. Another excellent version of the game. And so this is the third game in the series, and I've always thought the artwork was super cool on it. It definitely follows more of like the Devil's Crush style, I guess, as far as the actual table design. But now that I have it and I've played it, I get why all the reviews kind of bag on this game, because it's just something is off on it. The gameplay just doesn't have that same addictive quality to it. The music is a little bit weird. It just doesn't really necessarily fit the horror tone of the game. And overall, the polish of the game for a Super Famicom release you would think would be a little higher, but it really isn't compared to the earlier games. So happy to get it just kind of from the sake of I love video game pinball games. It's obviously not the worst in the genre by any means, but it doesn't hold a candle to the two prior games. So I did get it because I was out there and it was in the store in person, so I decided why not go ahead and go for it. But if you're on the fence on this game, you might want to definitely get the other games in the series first, because they are much better as far as classic video pinball titles. So cool to have it for now, but not something I'm probably going to play a whole lot more now that I have it. The next thing I got was actually an eBay find. This I picked up really early in the month, and it's something that I had already completed the set of all the Working Designs titles that they put out over several platforms, but there were a couple things that I needed just to make my collection a little more complete. And so one of these was one of the TurboGrafx games. It was for something that the game originally came with that like probably 95% of people threw in the trash immediately, sadly. So this is for Vastille on the TurboGrafx CD, and it came in a double disc case already, which I had with the original game instructions and the map that it came with. But what makes this copy special is it has the outer flap that the game came with. It's not even really a true slipcase, it's just a flap that goes around the double disc case. And it has the typical Working Designs foil design that most of their games had with the gold foil printing on it. So really weird the way that they package these, but this flap was mostly intact. It has a spine to it, and then the backside with even more of the foil text and all that on the back that kind of just shows off some of the quality that made the Working Designs games a little bit unique. And then you can see that this was part of the Working Designs Ultra series, of which there were a few games that are part of that subset. But inside of the flap, obviously it just comes off, and then it has some information, just warranty card or free newsletter sign up, and then a couple blurbs about their other titles. Most people just got rid of this immediately, and then you're left with the typical CD case, but you could always see that something was missing because when you flip it over, you just have some game artwork. There's no UPC or any information otherwise about the game. So to have a truly complete copy of this, you do need the flap. Very happy to have this. It popped up on eBay. This copy did not have the disc, but it had everything but the disc. And I made the seller an offer, and they gladly took it. So I was very happy to do that. So now I have an extra copy of the case, the manual, and the map that I don't know what I'm going to do with because I don't have an extra copy of the disc to sell that off. So if anybody is needing that, I definitely am open to trading that away. But this all being said, I'm still not complete with the flaps for the Turbo because Exile Wicked Phenomenon, which released after this game, also had one of these flaps that it came with, and it's even harder to find. So someday, hopefully, I'll be able to grab that as well. But just really strange that Working Designs packaged it this way. I mean, I think most people are accustomed to like a slip sleeve that goes over a CD case, but these were almost made to be disposable, and unfortunately a lot of people did. So very cool to get that in my Working Designs collection and get a little bit closer to how they were originally envisioned, at least. The next thing I'll show you was really just something else I bought online, but I bought it for the plane ride out there, and I knew I wanted some more games for my 3DS to play since I just recently got a 3DS a couple months ago. This is a game that I always thought I would definitely be very into because it's focused on the NES, which, as you can see, a big NES collector. And so I thought that this would be right up my alley. This is Ultimate NES Remix, and this game also came out on the Wii U. I never have had a Wii U, nor do I really have a desire to get one, but it mentions that it has like most of the games from the Wii U version, so maybe that version is a little bit more complete than this version is. Really what it is it's NES for people with very short attention spans, and I guess I thought it would be more like remixes of some of the levels. There is some of that included in here, but a lot of the gameplay is just like mini games of sections of popular NES game levels that you have to beat with certain objectives. So maybe you have to like step on 3 Koopas to beat a little subsection of a Mario level. Kind of a neat concept, but ultimately like it lost my attention, not even for the full plane ride to play it. Because I just think that like I know the original games so well that I would rather just play the original games than little subsections of them. I think this might be good for somebody that's experiencing the games for the first time. It has a pretty good cross-section of NES, at least first-party games included. So you obviously have your Metroids, your Zeldas, your Links, stuff like that. But it does have some of the more obtuse things like Balloon Fight and things like that included also. Very heavy on the original Kirby's Adventure for NES, which I don't really think that many people played because it came out so late in the NES life. But that game features heavily in here too. So happy to get this. Ultimately, it's pretty cheap still, and I don't know, just ultimately not something I'm going to play a whole lot more. But nice to have it, I guess. And maybe if somebody tells me the Wii U version is different, I'll check that out someday as well. But I don't know if we'll ever get another one of those packs, but kind of just an odd curiosity from NES history. The other two things I got on the trip out in LA are Game Boy titles, and these are both import games, and I got these from 2 separate locations. So the first one of these was from one of just the used game stores out there, and this is one that I knew existed, but I really wasn't actively chasing down, but it was cool to find it in the store. I'm not a big N64 fan, and one of the games on N64 that I got way after release that kind of caught my attention just because of how different it is Space Station Silicon Valley. Very weird Euro-developed game where you basically have to like inhabit other animals and beings to complete little objectives in the game, and you continue to shape-shift throughout the game based on doing that. Very unusual story, kind of like British humor, I guess would be the best way to put it. And ultimately there was a Game Boy Color version of the game, and this was a Euro exclusive for the Game Boy. Works perfectly fine on a US Game Boy, or Game Boy Color, but it was not released here. And so kind of cool to play this as well. It's a little rough around the edges, but I think the best way to describe it is it's like a demake of the N64 version brought into 2D. They really kept the story pretty authentic to the original, and also the level objectives are very similar as well. So now I kind of want to go back and play the N64 game and see how much is super closely related, but it kind of jogged my memory of some of the stuff I played in that version a couple years ago. I don't really know why we didn't get this one in the US, other than maybe the N64 game didn't sell all that well, but I think, honestly, considering how much junk came out on the Game Boy Color, this game probably would have had at least some market that it could have done okay. So definitely interesting if you have played the N64 version, you want to check this one out as well. There was also a PS1 version of the game that came out after this even, but I've heard that version is terrible, and that's also a Euro exclusive too. So knowing that one's PAL coding, I probably won't get a chance to play that one. But very cool to find that just at random in one of the stores out in LA. And then the last thing I got out on the trip was from the Book Off store that I visited. And LA has, I think, about 6 or 7 Book Offs now. I'd been to a few more on one of my prior trips, and one of my takeaways is that most of the Book Offs were very US-centric as far as what they were selling. They were, you know, still using the fixtures from the Japanese store and all that, but the products were more just like US trade-ins. There is one store, though, that is very much heavier on the Japanese product than the other stores, and that's the one I recommend if you're ever out in LA. I think the suburb is Gardena, and that one has a really nice selection of import games from like Famicom on up. The store had a lot of nice stuff, actually. It was just not really a whole lot that I needed. But one game that caught my attention was this one for original Game Boy that I recognized the artwork on the shelf. It didn't have any like legible text that I could easily read, but I knew this artwork stood out, that it was something I'd read about before. And I was glad I looked it up on the spot because it is really fun to play. This game is called Painter Momopi or Momopi. I don't know how you pronounce it. But it is a really fun maze action game, such as like a Pac-Man or a Crush Roller, with a little bit of extra thought given to it. So basically you are this witch with a giant paintbrush who is trying to sweep clean a castle or a house that all the floors have gotten dirty. And so you have to cover all the floors in the stage like a Pac-Man type of game. But there's a lot of interesting enemies, and then she also, because she's a witch, has the ability to cast magic. And so you have a certain level of magic points per level, and there's different spells that you can cast that'll either deflect enemies, or create invincibility, or let you shoot enemies, or also just speed up throughout the level and paint faster. Really adds a challenging element to the gameplay. It's not the most polished game, but it is very fun to play. The one thing that makes it a very cool like risk and reward factor is that every time you want to use one of the spells, you have to stop moving completely, which in a game that's very fast-paced with enemies that also move very fast-paced, that takes a lot of thought on, is it better just to avoid the enemy, or is it a good time to stop, cast a spell, and then deflect the enemy? Definitely some cool strategy in play here. So this game was developed by a company called Sigma. They didn't really release a whole ton of other games, but there were some other games kind of scattered around this era that they were responsible for. And honestly, I think this would have been a great arcade title had they gone that route with it too. But very fun game, some charming artwork. I would love to see like a modern remake of this. I think a lot could be done with it. And definitely understand why this is one of the more expensive Japanese Game Boy titles. That's especially complete. It goes for quite a bit. But very happy to get this in the collection. It was a complete impulse buy other than just looking it up on the spot. And very happy I did because I got several hours of gameplay out of it when I came home and played it last night. So definitely can recommend that if you like weird original Game Boy games. But that about does it. Like I said, other than that, it was a pretty light month. I got the chance to see a lot of different games, but didn't ultimately buy a whole lot based on just didn't really see a whole lot I needed out in that market. But LA is always fun to visit, and like to kind of check out some of the stuff they have out there. So hopefully you enjoyed. Thank you for watching. Please take a moment, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. And I will talk to you soon. Have a great day or night, wherever you are.